Get out of this plane right now! The air hostess screamed, her voice trembling between anger and disbelief. The whole jet went silent. Passengers froze in their seats, their eyes wide as the old Islamic cleric, his white beard trembling, his hands clutching a worn-out Quran, looked up at her with tears filling his eyes. The man could barely stand. His walking stick slipped and clattered to the floor. "Please, my daughter," he whispered softly, his voice shaking. "I only wanted to pray before takeoff." But before anyone could process what was happening, the air hostess stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply on the floor, and kicked the old cleric's small travel bag out of the jet door. And then, in a move that no one expected, she ordered security to throw him out of the aircraft. The old man stumbled, trying to speak, but his trembling lips couldn't form words. He looked back one last time, whispering something only a few nearby passengers heard. And what happened next left everyone on that flight in uncontrollable tears. But how did it all come to this? The story began just hours earlier, at King Abdulaziz International Airport in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. It was a sunny afternoon, the type of day when the airport buzzed with pilgrims, businessmen, and families traveling across the kingdom. The cleric, known as Sheikh Abdul Rahman, was well respected in his small town near Medina. He was traveling to Riyadh for a Quran conference where he had been invited as a guest of honor to recite verses and share his experiences as a teacher who had spent 60 years teaching children to read the Holy Quran. He was a humble man. His white thobe was simple, his sandals worn from years of walking to and from the mosque. Every movement he made was slow, calm, and full of gentleness. He smiled at everyone, even when they ignored him. The Quran never left his side. It was wrapped in green cloth, tucked carefully into a small leather bag. When he arrived at the boarding gate, the staff helped him scan his ticket. "Welcome aboard, Sheikh," one of the younger attendants said kindly. "You're seated in economy, seat 12A. "May Allah bless you, my son," the cleric replied softly. Inside the plane, passengers were already finding their seats. Among them was Aisha, a young air hostess who had only been working for the airline for 2 years. She was confident, strict about rules, and determined to do her job perfectly. But she also had a temper, one that she often tried to hide. Today, however, something about this flight felt heavy. As passengers settled in, the cleric quietly asked Aisha, "My daughter, before we take off, may I perform 2 rak'ahs of nafil prayer? It will not take long." Aisha frowned. "Sir, you cannot stand or move around before takeoff. It's against aviation rules. Please sit down." The old man smiled gently. "I understand, my daughter, but I will not disturb anyone. Just a short prayer by my seat. I only wish to thank Allah for granting me another journey." Aisha's tone grew sharper. "Sir," I said, "no. Please don't make this difficult." The cleric nodded and sat quietly, his lips moving in silent dhikr. Remembering Allah, he thought to himself, perhaps she doesn't understand. She is young. May Allah forgive her. Minutes later, as the captain's voice echoed through the speakers announcing takeoff in 10 minutes, something unexpected happened. A baby began crying loudly in the back of the plane. The cleric, trying to calm the situation, gently reached into his bag, brought out a small piece of paper with a written verse from the Quran, and offered it to the baby's mother. "Keep this near the child," he said kindly. "It may calm him, inshallah." But Aisha saw him standing again. Her patience snapped. "Sir, sit down now," she shouted, walking toward him. The mother tried to explain, but Aisha was already fuming. "You are breaking airline rules and disturbing passengers." The old cleric lowered his head. "I am sorry, my daughter. I only wish to help." Aisha was not listening anymore. "You need to leave the aircraft if you can't follow instructions." Gasps filled the cabin. One man whispered, "Astaghfirullah, he is a scholar." Another said, "Why is she shouting like this?" But Aisha didn't stop. She was trembling with anger now. "I said leave." The old man's voice broke as he pleaded, "Please, I am on my way to Riyadh for a Quran conference. I mean no harm." But it was too late. She called the ground staff and demanded his removal. The cleric's hands shook as he picked up his Quran bag, his walking stick tapping softly against the floor. He turned to the passengers and said, "Do not blame her. She is young. May Allah guide us all." Then came the moment that shocked everyone. The air hostess kicked his bag aside as he tried to pick it up, and the leather Quran case fell open. The holy pages fluttered across the floor of the plane. For the first time, Aisha froze. Her face went pale. The passengers gasped. One man shouted, "Fear Allah! You kicked the Quran." Aisha stepped back, suddenly realizing what she had done. But the cleric only smiled faintly, his eyes filled with tears. He bent slowly, gathering the scattered pages one by one. "Do not worry, my child," he said softly. "You did not hurt me. You only hurt your own heart." Security came and escorted him off the plane. The passengers murmured, some weeping, others shaking their heads in disbelief. And as the old cleric walked down the stairs, he looked up at the sky and whispered something under his breath. A prayer that would soon change every soul on that flight forever. What happened next was something that no one on that aircraft would ever forget. The door of the jet closed with a heavy metallic clunk. Everyone sat in stunned silence, still reeling from what had just happened. The air hostess, Aisha, stood stiffly by the aisle, her heart pounding so fast she could hear it in her ears. She tried to act composed, but her hands were trembling. The captain's calm voice broke through the tension. "Cabin crew, prepare for takeoff." The engines roared to life, and the plane began to taxi down the runway. Outside, the old cleric, Sheikh Abdul Rahman, stood beside the airport staff, clutching his Quran to his chest. The desert sun reflected off the jet's wings as it began to rise into the sky. The old man watched silently, lips moving in prayer. "Ya Allah," he whispered softly, "guide them and forgive them, for they do not know." Back inside the jet, passengers were still whispering. Some were angry, others deeply shaken. One elderly woman turned to Aisha. "My daughter," she said gently, "you should not have spoken to him like that. That man was a scholar of the Quran." Aisha swallowed hard. "I was only doing my job, ma'am. Rules are rules." But even as she said it, her voice broke slightly. Something inside her didn't feel right. As the plane ascended into the clouds, turbulence shook the cabin. It wasn't unusual at first, but soon, the shaking grew stronger. Passengers gripped their armrests, and babies began to cry. Aisha hurried to secure the food carts, her face pale. Then, out of nowhere, lightning flashed through the window, bright and blinding. The plane jolted sharply, and a loud bang echoed through the cabin. The lights flickered off. A few passengers screamed. The captain's voice came through the intercom. "Tense now. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We're experiencing an unexpected storm. Please stay in your seats." Aisha's hands shook as she held onto the cabin wall. Her mind raced. A storm? There wasn't any storm on the radar before takeoff. She looked through the small window near the galley. Dark clouds had swallowed the sky. Rain pounded the glass, and thunder rumbled like angry drums. Then she remembered the old cleric. His trembling hands, his kind eyes, his words, "You only hurt your own heart." Suddenly, her heart sank. A cold fear spread through her chest. She whispered under her breath, "Ya Allah, what have I done?" Meanwhile, in the passengers section, a man stood up shakily, holding his tasbih, prayer beads. "Brothers and sisters," he called out, "let us recite Ayatul Kursi together. We need Allah's mercy right now." One by one, voices joined in. The sound of Quranic recitation filled the air, soft at first, then louder, stronger, until the whole cabin echoed with the words of Allah. Even those who didn't know the verses whispered Amin under their breath. Aisha stood frozen at the front of the cabin, tears brimming in her eyes. The power of the recitation pierced her heart. It was as if the plane itself was trembling with the weight of repentance and fear. The storm raged harder. Lightning struck again, and for a moment, the entire sky lit up. Aisha looked out the window and gasped. Through the flashes of lightning, she thought she saw something. A faint figure on the clouds below. It looked like an old man in white, standing calmly with a glowing Quran in his hands. She blinked hard. Could it be her imagination? The figure raised one hand toward the sky, as if in prayer. Just then, the shaking stopped. The thunder rolled away, and the clouds began to part. A strange, calm silence filled the cabin. The captain's voice returned, this time in awe. "Ladies and gentlemen, I can't explain what just happened, but the storm has completely disappeared from our radar." Passengers began to cry in relief, thanking Allah aloud. Some fell into sujud, prostration, right in their seats. But Aisha could barely move. Her legs felt weak. She sat down, covering her face with her hands. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Ya Allah, forgive me," she whispered, trembling. "I hurt a man who only wanted to serve you." When the plane finally landed in Riyadh, everyone disembarked in silence. The passengers spoke in hushed tones, still shaken by what they had witnessed. As Aisha stepped off the jet, she saw a group of airport staff gathered near the arrival gate. Among them stood a familiar figure, Sheikh Abdul Rahman. Her breath caught in her throat. It can't be," she whispered. But there he was, calm, smiling, and holding his Quran in his hands. He looked untouched, unbothered, as if nothing had ever happened. The same man she had ordered off the plane hours earlier was now standing in front of her at the destination. Even though he had never boarded another flight. Aisha's knees weakened. The air felt heavy. Her lips quivered as she whispered, "Sheikh, how did you?" He smiled gently and said, "My daughter, when the world throws you out, Allah opens another door. Do not be proud when you have authority. Fear Allah when you use it." Tears poured down Aisha's face. "Please, forgive me. I didn't know." But before she could finish, the sheikh raised his hand, stopping her. "Do not seek forgiveness from me," he said softly. "Seek it from the one whose words you trampled." He turned and began to walk away, his white robe glowing faintly in the sunlight streaming through the terminal windows. People around them watched in silence, unable to understand what they were seeing. And then, just as he reached the exit doors, he stopped, looked back at Aisha one last time and smiled. "Your test has just begun." Before Aisha could speak, a sudden commotion erupted at the gate. A security officer came running, shouting, "We just received a call from Jeddah Airport. The old cleric who was removed from your plane. He was found collapsed near the runway right after you took off. They say he passed away." The crowd gasped. Aisha froze, staring at the spot where the sheikh had just been standing, but he was gone. Her heart. Aisha stood frozen at the airport terminal, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the noise around her. The words of the security officer echoed again and again in her head. "The old cleric who was removed from your plane. He passed away shortly after takeoff." Her knees weakened. The room seemed to spin. She turned to look toward the exit where she had just seen Sheikh Abdul Rahman standing moments earlier, smiling at her with such calmness. But now there was nothing. No trace of him. Only a faint scent of oud and musk lingered in the air, the same scent she had noticed when he boarded the plane back in Jeddah. Passengers whispered among themselves. Some who had been on the flight began to gather around her, their eyes wide with disbelief. One man said quietly, "Wallahi, I saw him too, standing right there. How could that be possible if he was gone?" Another woman, holding her baby close, whispered, "He looked so peaceful. Subhanallah." Aisha's eyes filled with tears. Her hands trembled as she clutched her scarf. "I saw him. I spoke to him," she murmured. "He told me my test had just begun." The security officer frowned, confused. "Ma'am, are you sure it was him? The report from Jeddah says the cleric was found lifeless near the runway. He never made it onto any other flight." Aisha couldn't answer. Her throat tightened. Her heart felt heavy with something she had never felt before. Guilt and fear mixed with awe. She walked away slowly, her vision blurry with tears. That night she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the old man's kind face, his trembling hands, and the way the Quran pages fluttered across the plain floor. His last words before being taken off the jet echoed in her mind. Do not blame her. She is young. May Allah guide us all. Aisha sat on her prayer mat in her small apartment in Riyadh. For the first time in a long while, she cried not out of frustration, but out of repentance. Ya Allah, she whispered between sobs. I disrespected your servant. I let my pride blind me. Forgive me. Forgive me. The call to prayer from a nearby mosque broke the silence. It was far time. She got up slowly, performed ablution, and stood to pray. Her tears fell freely as she bowed in sujud. When she rose again, she opened her phone and searched the news. Her breath caught in her throat when she saw the headline. Respected Quran scholar, Sheikh Abdul Rahman, passes away moments after being removed from flight. There was even a photo of him, taken at the airport earlier that day, smiling while greeting a small boy who had approached him for a dua. The article mentioned how, despite his age, the sheikh was traveling to attend the annual Riyadh Quran conference, where he was supposed to deliver a special lecture titled The Danger of Pride and the Beauty of Patience. Aisha's tears fell harder. The danger of pride, the beauty of patience. Those words cut deep. She decided to attend the conference anyway, hoping to find peace. Maybe she could meet some of his students or family and ask for forgiveness. 2 days later, she arrived at the Riyadh Islamic Center. The hall was filled with scholars, students, and believers from all over the kingdom. On the stage stood a large portrait of Sheikh Abdul Rahman, his gentle smile looking down on the crowd. As she entered quietly and sat at the back, a man stepped onto the stage. He introduced himself as Imam Yusuf, one of Sheikh Abdul Rahman's oldest students. He began to speak, his voice filled with emotion. Our beloved teacher taught us something precious before he passed. He told us, never turn away a soul who wishes to remember Allah. Even if they are slow, old, or different, help them, for Allah may love them more than he loves you. Aisha's lips trembled. She lowered her head, tears flowing freely now. Then, the Imam paused and added something that made Aisha's heart stop. The sheikh's final moments were witnessed by an airport staff member. They said he sat down near the runway after being removed from a plane, performed ablution with a small bottle of water, and prayed 2 rak'ahs of nafil. After finishing, he raised his hands to the sky and said, Ya Allah, forgive the young woman. She knows not what she has done. Moments later, he smiled and returned to his Lord. The entire hall fell silent. Many were weeping openly. Aisha covered her face with her hands. The weight of his forgiveness broke her completely. She wept until she could no longer breathe properly. After the lecture, she waited until most people had left, then approached Imam Yusuf. Her voice was shaking. Imam, I was that woman, the air hostess, the one who asked him to leave. The Imam looked at her quietly, his eyes soft but serious. You? She nodded, trembling. Please, tell me how I can make it right. He took a deep breath. My sister, what you did was wrong, but Allah's mercy is greater than your sin. The sheikh forgave you before he died. Do not waste his forgiveness by drowning in guilt. Instead, live in repentance and service. Aisha fell to her knees, crying again. I'll do anything. I'll serve in his name. Imam Yusuf placed a hand on her shoulder. Then start by serving the Quran. The sheikh was building a small Quran school for orphans near Medina. It remains unfinished because he passed before it could open. Help complete it. Aisha nodded slowly, determination mixing with sorrow in her eyes. I will. Promise. As she left the conference hall, she felt something soft touch her shoulder. She turned quickly but saw no one. Only a faint breeze brushed past her cheek, carrying with it that same scent of oud and musk. Her heart raced, and her tears flowed again. She whispered, Sheikh, I know you can't hear me, but thank you. I will not waste this second chance. That night, Aisha began her journey to Medina, to fulfill the promise she made before Allah and the memory of the man she was wronged. But as she reached the halfway point on the highway through the desert, her car began to shake. A strange sound came from the engine. The air grew thick, and in the distance, through the shimmering heat, she saw a man standing in the middle of the road, dressed in white. Her heart stopped. She slammed the brakes. The figure slowly raised his hand, signaling her to stop completely. And then, before she could even blink, the car's engine died, the wind howled through the sand, and the figure began walking toward her. The desert wind howled across the empty highway, swirling dust around Aisha's stranded car. Her heart pounded in her chest as she gripped the steering wheel tightly, her eyes fixed on the figure walking slowly toward her through the haze of golden sand. The man's white robe flowed in the wind. His steps were steady, deliberate, almost weightless. Aisha blinked, trying to clear her vision, but the figure didn't disappear. The nearer he came, the colder the air around her grew, as if the very desert had turned into night. She whispered shakily, "Ya Allah, who is this?" Her instinct told her to lock the doors, but her hands wouldn't move. Her body felt frozen, her breath shallow. The man stopped a few meters in front of the car, his face still hidden by the bright sunlight behind him. Then she heard his voice, soft, calm, and familiar. "Do not be afraid, my daughter." Her eyes widened. That voice, that gentle tone. Her heart skipped a beat. "Sheik?" she whispered. The man took one more step forward, and the sunlight shifted, revealing Sheik Abdul Rahman standing before her, smiling, holding his Quran close to his chest. His eyes glowed with a soft light, filled with peace and mercy. Aisha gasped and covered her mouth. It can't be you. They said you." "Yes," he interrupted softly. "My time in this world ended, but Allah allowed me to appear once more, because your repentance is sincere." Tears welled in Aisha's eyes. She opened the car door slowly and stepped out, her legs trembling beneath her. "Please forgive me again, Sheik. I don't deserve your mercy." He raised his hand gently, stopping her words. "You have already been forgiven, my daughter. But forgiveness is not the end. It is the beginning." The wind quieted, the desert suddenly still. The Sheik continued, "You are on a journey to finish what I started, the Quran school for the orphans in Medina. But know this, Allah tests those He loves. The path ahead will not be easy. You will face doubt, loss, and temptation. But if you hold firmly to faith, He will raise you higher than you ever imagined." Aisha nodded slowly, her tears falling freely now. "I'll do it. I'll finish the school in your name. I promise." The Sheik's smile deepened. "Do not build it in my name, my daughter. Build it for the sake of the one who gave you another chance." She lowered her head, whispering, "Yes, Sheik, for Allah alone." A long silence followed. The air grew warm again, and the golden sunlight returned to the desert. The Sheik looked at her one last time and said, "Remember, Aisha, when pride blinds your heart, humility will open your eyes. And when the Quran is disrespected, calamity follows. But when it is honored, even death cannot end its light." With that, he turned slowly and began to walk away into the desert horizon. The wind picked up once more, swirling sand around him, until, in a blink, he vanished completely. Aisha stood there, frozen, the echo of his words burning in her chest.
Her body trembled as she dropped to her knees on the hot sand and began to sob uncontrollably. "Ya Allah, I understand now," she cried. "You sent him not to punish me, but to guide me. Help me fulfill his wish, and help me live in your service." After a few minutes, she rose, got back into her car, and turned the key. The engine started instantly. She gasped softly. It had been dead moments ago. Her heart filled with renewed strength. She whispered, "Bismillah," and continued driving toward Medina. Hours later, she reached a small village on the outskirts of the city, where she had been told the Sheik's unfinished Quran school was located. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. The school stood at the edge of the village, a small, half-built structure of stone and clay. Children played outside with makeshift balls, their laughter echoing through the air. An elderly man sitting nearby noticed her car and walked over. "Assalamu alaikum," he greeted warmly. "Are you lost, sister?" Aisha shook her head. "Wa alaikum salam, uncle. I came to see the Quran school. I heard it was started by Sheikh Abdul Rahman." The man's eyes lit up with surprise. "Ah, may Allah have mercy on him. He was a light to this village. We've been praying for someone to help us finish the building. The funds stopped coming after his death." Aisha felt her heart tighten. "I want to help. I want to finish what he began." The man's eyes softened. "Subhanallah. The sheikh said before he died, a young woman will come from far away to continue this work. Allah will guide her to us." Aisha froze, her eyes widening. "He said that?" The man nodded, smiling faintly. "Yes, he did. We didn't believe it then. But now," he looked at her meaningfully. "Now I see his words coming true." Aisha's tears flowed again. "Then let us begin," she said firmly. From that day onward, she dedicated her entire life to completing the Quran school. She used her savings, sold her jewelry, and even quit her airline job to stay in Medina. The villagers helped her, brick by brick, prayer by prayer. Every night, she would sit on the unfinished steps of the building, reading from the Quran the sheikh had left behind. And often, when the desert wind blew gently, she could still hear his voice reciting verses, calm and beautiful, like a blessing carried through the air. Months passed, and the school neared completion. But one night, as Aisha prepared to lay the final stone above the entrance gate, a powerful storm rolled across the desert, stronger than any she had ever seen. The wind howled. The sky turned black. Lightning struck dangerously close to the building. The children and workers ran for shelter, shouting, "It's too dangerous, Sister Aisha." But Aisha stood firm in the rain, clutching the stone in her hands. "No," she cried above the thunder. "We will finish this tonight. For Allah. For the sheikh." As she took one step forward, lightning struck the ground near her feet.
Throwing her backward, the stone fell from her hands and shattered. The wind roared even louder, almost like a voice whispering through the storm. "Your test is not yet over." The sound sent chills down her spine. She fell to her knees in the mud, clutching her Quran to her chest, and screamed through the rain, "Ya Allah, show me what you want from me." And then, through the flashing lightning, she saw a shadow moving inside the unfinished school. A man's silhouette, standing near the prayer hall, holding a Quran that glowed with light. Her eyes widened. "Sheikh?" she whispered. The figure raised one hand slowly, pointing toward the sky. And at that exact moment, a massive bolt of lightning struck the top of the building, lighting up the night like day. The lightning tore through the sky like a sword of light, striking the half-built Quran school with a deafening crash. Dust, wind, and rain exploded in every direction. Aisha fell flat to the ground, covering her head as stones and sand flew around her. For a moment, everything went white, then silent. When the light faded, she lifted her head slowly. The storm had stopped as suddenly as it began. The air was thick with the smell of rain and earth. The moon broke through the clouds, casting a silvery glow over the ruins of the half-finished building. Aisha's heart pounded. "Sheikh?" she whispered shakily. "Where are you?" There was no answer, only the sound of dripping water from the broken roof. But then, from deep inside the prayer hall, she heard something faint, the soft, beautiful sound of Quran recitation. Her breath caught. The voice was familiar, calm, rhythmic, and full of peace. "Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin." Indeed, Allah is with those who are patient. Her tears began to flow again. That was his voice, Sheikh Abdul Rahman's. She rose to her feet and walked into the half-flooded hall, her sandals squelching in the mud. The sound grew louder with each step. The walls shimmered faintly in the moonlight, and in the center of the room stood a glowing figure, the sheikh, reciting with his hands raised toward the sky. She froze. Sheik? He turned slowly, smiling at her. His face was radiant, shining softly like the moonlight itself. You have done well, my daughter, he said gently. You have proven that repentance can rebuild what pride destroys. Aisha's voice trembled. But the school, it's ruined. The lightning destroyed it. The sheik shook his head slowly. No, Aisha, it is not destroyed. Look again. She turned around and gasped. The debris, the broken stones, the shattered wood were gone. In their place stood a completed Quran school, shining under the moonlight. The walls were tall and clean, the dome glistening. The name written above the entrance read, Darul Noor, the House of Light. Aisha covered her mouth, her eyes wide with awe. But how? The sheik smiled. This is Allah's doing. Your sincerity rebuilt this place in ways that human hands could not. The structure will rise again by morning, as he wills. You see, Aisha, when a servant truly repents, even the heavens respond. She fell to her knees, weeping. Sheik, I am not worthy of this. I hurt you. I disrespected you. He interrupted softly. And yet you changed. That is what makes you worthy. Allah does not expect perfection, only sincerity. His form began to fade slightly, the glow dimming. My time is short, but before I go, remember this lesson. Never let rules silence mercy. Never let position blind humility. A believer's strength lies not in authority, but in compassion. Aisha sobbed openly now. Please don't go, please. The sheik smiled gently. I do not leave you, my daughter. Every child who recites the Quran in this school. The story of Prophet Yusuf had been a journey of patience, hardship, and faith. From the bottom of the well to the heights of power, Yusuf never let go of his trust in Allah. And now, the time had come for the story to reach its most emotional ending. Reunion, forgiveness, and the fulfillment of Allah's promise. Yaqub sends his sons back. In Canaan, the family of Yaqub was living in deep sorrow. Hunger still troubled them, and the pain of losing Yusuf and now Binyamin was unbearable. Yaqub, blind from years of crying, still had hope in his heart. He said to his sons, O my children, go and search for Yusuf and his brother, and do not despair of relief from Allah. Indeed, none despairs of relief from Allah except the disbelieving people. These words carried a power that struck his sons' hearts. They realized their father had never lost faith, even when everything seemed impossible. So once again they set out for Egypt. The brothers before Yusuf. The brothers entered Yusuf's court once more. They stood before the powerful minister, their heads lowered in shame and desperation. They said, O noble minister, hardship has touched us and our family. We have brought only poor goods, but please give us full measure and be charitable to us. Truly, Allah rewards those who give charity. Yusuf looked at them, his heart trembling. He saw the same brothers who had once thrown him into the darkness of a well. Yet now, they stood before him in weakness and need. The moment of truth had come. Yusuf could no longer keep his identity hidden. He said in a voice filled with both strength and emotion, Do you know what you did to Yusuf and his brother? When you were ignorant? The brothers froze. Their eyes widened in shock. The past they had buried came rushing back. Are you Yusuf? They stammered. Yusuf smiled gently, tears glistening in his eyes. Yes, I am Yusuf, and this is my brother. Allah has certainly favored us. Indeed, whoever fears Allah and is patient, then surely Allah does not allow the reward of those who do good to be lost. The brothers beg for forgiveness. The brothers, overwhelmed by guilt, fell to their knees. By Allah, they said, Allah has certainly preferred you over us, and we were truly sinners. In that moment, Yusuf had every right to punish them. He had power, authority, and justice on his side. But Yusuf's heart was filled with mercy, not revenge. He spoke the words that shine like light through history. No blame will there be upon you today. May Allah forgive you, and He is the most merciful of the merciful. It was a moment of ultimate forgiveness. A lesson that even when wronged, a believer's heart is big enough to forgive. the shirt of Yusuf. Yusuf then gave his shirt to his brothers and said, "Take this shirt of mine and cast it over my father's face. He will regain his sight. Then bring me your entire family." The brothers raced back to Canaan with the precious shirt.